Hello and welcome to the Marketing Times Analytics podcast. This is my first in-person podcast, and I'm graced here by the presence of none other than the great Connor Skelly. Connor, would you like to introduce yourself?
What an introduction. Good to be here, Alex. I'm Connor. I am a marketer, business owner, friend, partner,
Yes.
homeowner,
Yes.
son,
Beloved son.
beloved favorite son.
Actually, Connor was the first episode of this podcast ever, and the title was called Marketing and Analytics at a Startup.
Mhm.
And at the time you were working at a startup, and so that was sort of the angle that we took. So I guess just to catch us up a little bit, tell us about the industry that you're working in. Tell us about like what part of marketing you're zooming into, just from a high level.
Yeah. So the last time, we talked a lot about like anything related to marketing in a startup, and my experience at that company got me really interested in systems. So like making, how can you make marketing and sales and customer success work better together and more efficiently? And so that's like the world that I've been getting much more into. So the operations side of marketing, and again, a lot of sales and customer success. And so at that company that I was at when we first talked, we had used HubSpot. And so I essentially became the keeper of that tool, and then got really interested in not just systems, but and like figuring out, what's the end result, and then how do you work backwards, and what's the system you need to build, but then how do you do that, through a technology or a specific CRM or something like that, and having that be like the center point of team processes and day-to-day activity. So yeah, that's the work that I've been doing for probably pushing 2 years now.
I want to ask you, what are some processes that you've been able to implement or change about a business that's like a good example of a process change?
So a lot of different things. So like one recent one was this law firm. Law firms, a lot of businesses like that, a huge part of their revenue is referrals. And so a lot of CRMs don't have a really good way of tracking referrals, because it tends to be like an inbound sort of self-attribution type of source, right? Like a lead comes to you and they have to tell you, I heard from this person, or this person sent me, right? And so that becomes very difficult when, like, just getting into the nitty gritty of it, like that becomes very difficult for like an intake team, or like lead
free form data entry is
exactly
the issue.
Right. So like that tends to be where people default to, because that's just what immediately comes to mind. And so you then run into a lot of issues of, one, like not tracking the name, right? So just calling it something like referral. A lot of technologies are case sensitive, right? So you have to, if you do a lowercase versus an uppercase first name, those are two different things when you look at it from a reporting perspective. And so what I eventually implemented with them was adding on an additional piece of their CRM, where the referral was like its own standalone thing, or referrer was its own standalone thing. So you'd have like your contacts, your companies, your deals, your normal stuff that you would have, but then you add on this additional object, this additional element within the CRM, and it then becomes its own independent entity that can play around with everything else. So with that, what they're doing right now with that is, so after we got all of their referral people and mapped it to all of the past contacts and deals and things like that, a super manual, really annoying process. But now that we have this in place, one, there's a process to automatically create these things as new leads come in, because the team is really good at identifying referrals, but we needed to make it easy for them to create those things, right? Like that's a good thing to think about when you're adding any new process, is what other processes are going to be touching that, and are you making their life harder by adding on this new thing, right? Automation kind of comes to mind, because like the go-to is let's automate everything. But in a lot of cases, if you kept something manual, you'll either continue to be just as efficient, Or especially if it's a new process, starting off with manual work is really important because it forces people to go through the process, and you get a lot better feedback that way too. So with this refer a custom object, they're able to see who, like, of their top referrers, who has brought them the most contacts, who has brought them the most deals, how much revenue has directly sourced from this referrer. So like now we're starting to think about, they'll do like annual gifts or letters or something like that for the holidays for their top referrers. But before that, it was just a shot in the dark, right? It was just kind of a relationship thing. And so now we're able to get into much more sophisticated like marketing programs around referral marketing. And so we could then start to do, if a deal goes closed won from someone that comes in, let's just email that person right away and say, hey, this person you brought us, they're now working with us. Thank you so much. Here's a gift card, or like, or even just the acknowledgement is enough. So like, and that is really important when it comes to continuing to generate consistent revenue for a business that's very referral based, is you have to keep in touch with the people that are bringing you the most business.
Interesting. So, and what you're kind of touching on is the idea of incentives, that which dictate behavior. So if you were to incentivize more referrals, because now you have the data to determine the good ones, and you start giving spiffs for more, referrals, you are going to cause people to be incentivized to do more referrals. It sounds simple, but it's like, that's how you have to think in terms of how do I incentivize the behavior that I want?
Yeah.
And so you're enabling that process to even happen because it relies on data.
Yeah. Because like, if I refer you, or if I send, like, if you're doing consulting or something and I send someone your way and then I never hear about it again, every time that happens, I'm less inclined to keep doing it.
Right.
Because I don't know, I may not even know that person I sent you to, and they have no reason to reach back out to me, or if you don't reach out to me, then I'm going to have no idea what happens. And so like, there are plenty of people out there, like, we're both kind of this way, where like, we'll just send people stuff or send people to other people because we can't help them and we just want to like do a good deed. But when you look at it from a business perspective, like, there are very real incentives that can come down with that, and so that's where you can build like a very solid working relationship.
Yeah, and you're getting into affiliate marketing, which is very hot.
Yeah, relate that to what would my role be in something like that, right? So typically, like, if a company wanted to launch an affiliate marketing program, right, they have a strategy in place, they identified this as a need, then they would come to someone like me and like, how do we operationalize this? How do we implement it? What processes do we need to have in place in order to have this run successfully? Sometimes it'll include like, what are the metrics we need to track? How do we collect that data? What is the process to collect that data? How do we report out on it? And measure it and all that. And so that tends to be like, the world that I've been getting a lot into is what I describe as like the supply chain of marketing and sales and customer success. It's what happens behind the scenes. What are the tools and process and data that you need to implement to enable the marketers and the salespeople and things like that to do their day-to-day jobs?
It's very interesting. So I want to go super meta with you, and you're talking about processes in the marketing ecosystem that you're improving, but what about the processes that you use to run your business? So that's like a meta process where how do you actually run the company that then does the processes?
Yeah, I'm like such a hypocrite when it comes to that, because day to day we'll put together big plans and implementations and things like that for our clients to make sure their CRM is working as efficiently as possible and they're getting the most out of it. But then you turn around and like look at my CRM and it's a nightmare. Like, it is a nightmare. We're in the process of fixing it up, and we actually just implemented something yesterday that is a refined sales process, like, for the company. And so what that ended up being was, it was new deal stages in the pipeline. So adding on a couple things, rearranging some stuff, just because now, if you have dozens and dozens of meetings, you learn and you get a bunch of clients, you find the patterns in the sales process and you want to be able to repeat that. And like I always recommend, like, start as simple as possible when it comes to that type of thing. Like the less stages, the better. And you don't really want to have a stage for something that is like a one-off rare occurrence. You want to have something that is consistent, and have it be as linear as possible. And so new deal stages, added on automations where if there's no activity on the deal for like 4 days, send me a task until there is something. And,
nice.
And to follow up and like do that forever.
What do you use for that?
HubSpot
For task management?
Mm-hmm. For at least for as far as like internal sales process stuff goes, using that. And so like we'll use like ClickUp for like work management and stuff like that for clients. But as far as like the internal stuff, yeah, we're using HubSpot for that.
What other tools, I'm curious, do you use to run your business?
I just did an audit of all this because I'm trying to get a formal budget together. And let's see. So ClickUp, HubSpot, Slack, Zoom, PandaDoc for proposals and contracts, Canva, Loom, who just got acquired.
What's Loom?
Loom is the screen record, press the button, record your screen, and do a quick thing.
Oh, I have that. Yeah. I've used that.
Yeah. Loom.
That's good for if you're developing like a software or some kind of a technical thing with somebody, and you can just quickly like say, oh, on this page there's an issue.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful for that. Like in our case, we'll use it for two things. One, like I hate meetings and they're an inevitability, but it is nice when like I'm in a meeting and the rest of my team isn't, and I can just walk through like what I talked about with the client and like in their account and just say like, okay, we need to do this and this and this. This is the reason why we're doing this. This is the desired outcome, that kind of thing. So that's one reason we use it. And the other one is for training. So when we do implementations or really anything that's around a new process, just screen record walking through the entire thing. Here's how you do it. Provide them a training document. And then now they have the written steps as well as the video assets so they can actually see what to do on it. So we use that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably like, I think I may get rid of this now, which you may find this interesting, but Fireflies, like AI, the note taker. So it was really nice at first because it joins the meeting, in theory, it will capture a recording of it, transcript, and then send out summaries as well as action items and things like that. The action items are now like a more premium feature that I'm not going to pay for because it's a pretty expensive tool. But it was really helpful to see, like, especially when you go back and like you get like into the nitty gritty details of like of implementing something with a client, right? Or figuring out on the phone what the right solution is. Having that historical record was really helpful. But just yesterday I used the new Zoom like summary AI thing and it was great. So we're already paying for that. So that'll probably get rid of a $150 a month cost.
Whoa.
Yeah, Fireflies is not cheap. The reason why I went with it and I left other tools is because they have a really good API. So it's integrated with our Slack, it's integrated with ClickUp.
So I actually just got an AI for note taking called Read.ai. It's much cheaper than that. And I've connected it to Zapier. And so every time I have a intro call for my podcast, just about 15 minutes, we talk about what we're going to talk about on the podcast, their background and so forth. Then I have the note taker send that data from the notes to Zapier, and then plug in a custom query in ChatGPT where I feed the notes in and I ask ChatGPT, based off of these notes, I want you to write me 20 questions for the podcast, a podcast title, a summary for the podcast, a promotional post for the podcast social post, and I want you to email that to me and put it directly natively into my OneNote, which is my workflow for the podcast.
That's so good.
Yeah, and it's pretty cheap.
I love that. Yeah,
Zapier is the best.
Yeah, I guess we have Zapier too, but we have like not the free, whatever is above the free one. Actually, no, we do have the free one because most of the automations we have now are native in HubSpot.
Nice.
But we have a couple things in Zapier. But that's a cool That is a cool workflow.
That's the thing. And I figured it out. It took me 3 years to finally put together. But it's all about thinking about what is your workflow? Like like what do you actually do? And then there is usually a way. Like even for the podcast interview that I do, I mean, obviously there's some magic to it, but I was thinking like I could have an AI rendering of me asking certain questions and like plug my personality into it. And if I could have an AI version of me doing the podcast, then I could record 100 podcasts simultaneously, and I could actually scale this thing to like crazy volumes.
True.
Isn't that exciting? I mean, it's not exciting that I'll do it, but it's like the possibilities.
The fact that that is not out of the realm of possibility is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you just said something. I'm not going to remember it. Oh, yeah. Like you said, like just going through your actual workflow. I'm working with this operations agency right now, ironically. And they are... because the goal is right now is like you reach certain ceilings when you have levels of scale and things start to break, right? And so, hiring more people requires new process and things like that. And with the goal of removing myself farther and farther from the business, you need to implement new systems and new process and stuff. And so I've gotten by pretty well so far, but now reaching a point where you need that outside perspective from a business that does this day to day with companies. And so we're going through this thing right now, just called the process workflow. And it's this huge spreadsheet that's very empty with a lot of columns. And it's meant to be like an idiot-proof action plan, like tactical action plan for your business. Mm-hmm. So from marketing to sales to pre-kickoff to kickoff, month 2, month 3, your daily recurring task, your weekly recurring task, monthly, quarterly, annual, you go through and you just document everything. So every little granular task. And then in the columns, there's like 40 different columns or something. And so you go through like, who's the owner of this? Is there an internal communication around it? There's a lot of stuff for like what happens internally. Is it like an internal facing task or an external facing task? And there's a section for like client experience or and empathy. So like, how can you, like what is the desired client experience around this particular task? What happens with them? It's obviously irrelevant for a lot of internal tasks because it doesn't touch clients, but then there's a section for operations. So what technology do you need for this? Does this have a template or some sort of source that you can mock this off of? And yeah, it's been enlightening to go through it. It was super daunting at first because you just see the spreadsheet and you could like add rows and stuff like that, but you just see the spreadsheet with like 100 rows and you're like, and you completely forget about what you do day to day.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
But now that I've really gone through it, I've started to condition myself where if I'm working day to day, I then think like, oh, that's not in the document. Add that in there into this little thing. And so it's meant to be like you hand this to someone and they know step by step what to do in the business on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So you hand this
the secret sauce.
Yeah. So you hand this to a new hire. Like once you put the information in, you could then filter it based on roles and like do all that type of stuff. So then you know what that person's like master task list is.
Yeah.
A lot of it, especially in like this business, a lot of it is like, it's not just press this button at this time, right? It's a little more strategic and thoughtful than that. But there are those things that are like, send this email using this template at this time.
Yeah.
Like that stuff does exist. But yeah, it's really interesting to think about that type of stuff because it works.
Yeah.
Right? When you actually document it and you do something consistently and you start to improve it, it works. And you're like, oh, I have so much more time now.
Yeah.
And so that is just kind of going back to the first question. Like that is the world that I've been getting into.
Yeah. Time is so fleeting. We have but moments left,
It's the ultimate currency.
Yes, and you can't make more of it. That's why I got 2 Roombas. One to mop and one to vacuum because...
Roombas mop?
Yeah, I have a mopping one and a vacuuming one. And so the vacuuming one goes first in the morning while I'm still asleep, and then the mopping one goes after.
Oh, interesting. Okay, we can have a lengthy conversation about that. Recently got a Roomba, right?
Oh.
I did. Because I got it because the vacuum that we had, it just started to not be good. So I was like, oh, maybe this is a good opportunity to get a Roomba, right? And so I get it, and we have 2 cats, so that was a big reason to get it. And it was just like the consistency of vacuuming is something I couldn't do. Like it takes 10 minutes to vacuum something, but like doing it all the time, like you realize how much stuff accumulates. My biggest problem with the Roomba is that it never does the job because it always says it's full. It always says like the container thing is full, and it says like clean it and whatever and things like that.
And you do.
And I do like a deep clean of it, and then it'll run for like 10 minutes. It'll like go on our living room carpet, which probably has a ton of cat hair on it.
Oh my gosh.
And then it's like, okay, going back home. And I'm like, and then I empty it, and it's like, and it's just a little palm full of dust.
It's not even full.
It's not even full.
Oh my goodness.
It got completely full for like the first 3 days, and then now maybe I'm just not cleaning it well enough or something.
There might be a sensor or something that's like...
Yeah, there's like 6 sensors that you have to... Oh, I've read the manual.
Right. That's... I can't even believe that. Because you would think... That's why I went with the Roomba, because that is the best... That's the main brand. That's the Apple...
Of course. And I mean, they have like 12 different products, which is confusing, but it's a good idea. I stopped doing it in the morning, too, because I used to have it turn on at like 3 in the morning when I'm asleep.
It's loud.
Yeah.
It's bumping into things, too. You know, you hear it bumping into your bedroom door. You're like, is somebody trying to get in?
Yeah.
And it keeps bumping.
Yeah. And like, because we have 2 levels, so you have to like bring in the home is on the first floor, and so bringing it up to the second floor, it just like doesn't compute. So it's actually really fun to just like watch it figure itself out. And it's also fun to watch the cats like around it. At first they were very apprehensive, but now they're
do they sit on it?
No,
I've seen some videos.
I haven't placed any of them on it yet.
You got to get the mop for that, because the mop is like silent.
Is it like a different product, or is it just like an attachment?
It's a different product, and it's smaller. I'll show you after this. It's so beautiful. I love robots, because they save us so much time. Yeah, we can actually do the important stuff now, like talk about, I don't know, whatever we want now.
We can now talk about Roombas instead of vacuuming.
Exactly, and that's a better use of time. I noticed that I will keep every time I buy something like. In a certain category, let's say a keyboard, then I get littered with keyboard ads for the next week or two. Do you notice that after you made a purchase?
That's so infuriating.
After you made a purchase.
Like, there needs to be a layer in the ad network or the ad platform that looks at another dimension of
credit card spending,
of frequency of that item purchased, right? Because if I buy a couch, why do I need couch ads for the next 3 weeks? I'm not going to be buying another couch.
It's a waste of money. You're out of the market.
Yeah, exactly. So like there needs to be an additional layer that looks at the product type or the SKU or both or whatever, and then looks at other purchasing channels and looks at the frequency of that product purchase.
Yeah, what I would do actually is buy consumer purchase data. So you can buy credit card purchase data from people. And I would break all the spending into different categories. And then I would say, look at the category that I'm advertising in. So if I'm advertising in footwear, and then I want to look at footwear purchases. And I want to look at how much does it take to tap somebody out in this audience. So let's say they spend like $100 on footwear. I want to clean them. I want to scrub them from my targeting, because I know like they've spent the money in this area.
Oh, that's cool.
I no longer want to touch them. So it's about a suppression list. That's what's missing. And I would hazard to guess that over 50% of marketing advertising spend happens after the consumer made a purchase, because the data is so slow to even tell you that they're in the market. They're already so close to a purchase. They're going to purchase like, how long does it take us to make a purchase? I mean, it was Amazon Prime Day a couple days ago. It took me 30 seconds to buy a TV. Yeah. Okay. So how is the advertising ecosystem going to compete? So they're going to see me as a TV buyer. Then they're going to start advertising to me, and I've already made the purchase.
Right.
So that's a huge issue. Okay. Let me give you a hot idea that I had recently.
Wait, before you say that, I know what the hole in this table is for.
We finally figured it out. So I had an idea recently. I'm curious how much you'll hate it. So it is a way for people who are financially constrained to make a little bit extra money, and they basically wear an LCD shirt.
I hate it.
I know, but the question is, how much do you hate it? And and it can show ads and whatever, and it'll also have NFTs where you can make it different clothings and whatever.
Forget that part.
But it pays them based off of how many people like look at them and stuff. So it's a way for them to earn passive
Good way to get
income.
in shape, because they'll have to walk around a lot for a lot of people to see them.
That's right.
I hate this idea. I hate it.
But it
It's
gives
so
them
bad.
money.
True. So let's say the company fronts the cost of the shirt. They give it to the contractor because they're definitely not an employee.
That's right.
And then
They just walk around. We find some way to.
Well, it's not just walking around. You have to figure out how, like, what is the reach? What is like the value?
So they could have cameras with eye tracking and actually see who looks at it, or you could use device IP device locations to see how many people are.
Oh, you could do like foot traffic data and
Yeah.
like stuff like that. You could do that and just do like the aggregate or like the median of foot traffic.
Yep.
Yeah.
You could also look at real time device MAC addresses and Bluetooth addresses. A company in London got in trouble for this because they were scanning for IPs. Yeah, not in America. They were scanning for the IPs of passersby of a billboard. So your device has a specific address. Yeah. So when you come back to a certain location in the physical world, you can actually see your device's code coming back. So they use that to establish a baseline for frequency.
Yeah. Oh, that's like table stakes in in-store analytics in the US.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
they got in trouble for it.
You'll see all those like white boxes like in stores and things like that. Like those are just like data trackers,
right?
Pretty much. Yeah. I've worked with a couple companies that a long time ago that did that. They use ad tech like kind of stuff. But yeah, I hate this idea.
Yeah,
I think it could work. I don't hate it a lot.
Okay.
I have ethical issues with it.
It's unsettling.
It's more unsettling than it is. It's definitely interesting. It's more unsettling than it is appealing.
Yeah.
But
someone's got to do it.
Someone will do that.
It's interesting.
I mean, what's so different between advertisers? Well, I guess there's a lot different, but between advertisers paying to have their logo on some, like, you know,
or in your car,
soccer players'
pay you
shorts.
They'll pay you to wrap your car. They'll pay you to put an ad on the side of your house if you live next to the highway. They'll pay you for anything that they can. They'll pay you to post on Instagram if you have a big enough following. Like the key of advertising is just if there's eyeballs going in a certain direction, you can monetize it.
Right.
But there's this technology doesn't currently exist. Like the wearable fabric in a way that's like affordable and connected to an ad network. This could be a good idea for my ad network. Like maybe because the key is to have, and we're kind of skipping ahead here, but the key is to have unique placements, right? Like if you want to have a business, it needs to have a unique twist, right? Like that's the key to good marketing, to a good product. You need to have at least one unique element about your business that separates it from everybody else. Otherwise, you're just selling a commodity.
Or a perceived unique element.
Yeah, it could be totally like nothing that matters, and you just like that little touch.
Right.
And that's enough.
And that's the reason why the people you sell it to buy from you and only you. Right. Yeah. So real or perceived.
Yeah. Yes. So this would be a real differentiator if you could buy that or a blimp. Let's say we have our own blimp and you can just like digitally change the message. And then you can say, I could get you the key. One of my goals is so that I could tell people, where is it?
Is one of your goals to buy a blimp?
Well, it's definitely up there, but the goal, I don't remember where I put it, but I want to be able to tell somebody I could put you on a blimp in 5 minutes. And what I mean by that is I could put their ad on the blimp like immediately and maybe have a live stream of it or something so they can see it. So the goal would be like, show people how well you can target to sell the customer. So I want to do like a feature where it's like hyper precise targeting. So I could say, Connor, what's your name? Blah, blah, blah. What's your phone number? Blah, blah, blah. Click. And then I'm like, okay, go to any site. So you go to a site and like you immediately see like my face and I'm like, or something. And so we can demonstrate to them that we can like hyper local target people on their individual device.
Yeah, I get the concept. I feel like that's a really hard thing to do.
I've been thinking about this for years, though. Like hyperlocal geo-targeting is a big thing that can happen in the future. Like our phones know where we are within like 5 feet.
Right.
Okay, so this has not been used in marketing yet. The last update for geo-marketing was like household. Like they can tell if you're in a house. They can tell you're like 100 within 100 feet. Yeah, like, yes, but
in-store stuff has been around for
but you get in the store, out of the store. Maybe you get some in the store location, but true like hyper local marketing where I can target like you on that side of the room versus me on this side of the room is not a thing yet.
So what is the benefit of that?
The benefit is that once you can establish an identity graph and you know like Connor is right over there, then you can buy display ads in a privacy compliant way against that location, for example. So the original idea for this I had was actually for parents to buy out all the ad spots for their children's web browser activity. So if you could if you could locally target your home and buy out all of the bids, so instead of 1 cent for this stupid ad, you pay 1.5 cents for nothing.
Why wouldn't you just use like Brave or some other privacy browser?
You could. I think this helps with the things that sneak through. So you could also use a privacy browser and do that. Like what about TV?
Right.
Why don't I just buy out all the commercials?
Yeah.
And then my kids are watching nature during the breaks or educational stuff during the breaks, right? So you can decide what you put in the space that advertisers are paying pennies to put in front of your kids for hours. They're watching these stupid things.
That is an interesting, like, I like that. That's cool.
Nice.
That's a cool concept because I do think it's sort of, in my opinion, it's sort of slowed down, but it will, I think, eventually go back up again where there is this growing need for consumers to control their own data. I just don't know. I just don't think there's like a huge market for it. Yeah. I mean, there's that, what was that company?
Tiki.
Yeah, exactly.
I love Tiki.
And I've been kind of loosely following what they've been doing and stuff. Like right now, I don't think there's not a huge demand for that. It also just emphasizes the importance for first party data, which, actually, whether it's like creating content or building a good brand or whatever it is, like actually in providing some sort of incentive, whatever that may be, for people to give you, the company, their information. And now that company owns that information, right? Whether it's an email address, phone number, or whatever. And then you can do what you want with that. It doesn't necessarily address your advertising issue, but I think that'll also just weed out a lot of, I don't know, not like inferior, but
yeah,
I think it's important for
messy data.
Yeah, messy data, or even just like haphazard marketing practices or things like that. Like it weeds out a lot of people that are just renting Facebook or Google's capabilities to do all their business. That being said, there's plenty of successful businesses that do that and only that. Probably a lot of companies that we both like. But I think looking at it from a pure like marketing perspective and a brand perspective, you want whatever company you're buying from or something to feel like they're offering you actual value, and so you want to give them that information. And,
right. And I'm super pro first party data. I mean, that's everybody. I know we talked a lot about buying data, and we probably look honestly like a little bit ethically gray just because we're talking about like people's privacy and data.
Sure. Yeah.
But first party is obviously the best. You want people to opt in and tell you what they want to tell you. Like marketers want that too, right? Nobody wants to be creepy and steal all your data. It's literally trying to figure out who wants the product or service and telling them that you have the product or service. So when you look at it from that capacity, it's not like, we want your data because it's creepy, because we want to know everything about you. We just want to know if you are in the market for this thing.
Yeah.
And that's simple. That's like, you could boil down all of advertising into that. Like, do you want this thing? And to the right person. And I would argue we're not even close. Like the ecosystem, if you look at the rates, like a good rate is 1 out of 1,000. Like you,
What, the conversion?
conversion.
Yeah.
So you have 999 people who don't need your product that you're marketing to, and then one person who buys, or maybe 10 people eventually who buy. The state of advertising, the state of the propensity modeling and the targeting models has so much room to grow.
Why is that? The way you describe that is it sounds inherently bad.
Yeah.
Why is that inherently bad?
Because it's a waste of money. I want the best marketing is where every single piece of marketing that goes out, every single impression leads to a sale. That is the ideal state of marketing. If you're sending out direct mail, every 100% of your pieces end up in a sale. That's what we all should aspire to. First principles thinking, right? If I write a piece of paper and send it to somebody, I want them to purchase based off of it. And if I have to send out 999 of them just to get one sale, you know the industry is gonna have to fix that at some point, because there's so much money to be made. If you could, instead of 999 people who don't want your product, you send it to the other 999 who do. But you don't have the right data yet. So the advertisers don't have the right data and targeting models to find what all the best people are. It's about behavioral data, consideration data. Are they still in the market for it? It's about buying the right data to improve that conversion rate.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a tough thing to sell, though. I think at a very macro industry level, I think it's a tough thing to sell because, like ROI is the biggest thing, right? So you're spending $100,000, you sell to one, you reach 1,000 people, you only sell to one, but that one sale is worth $500,000, right? Mm-hmm. So you get a 5x return on all of that. So and for most businesses, they're more than happy with that, right? So
thank you everyone for joining, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Connor.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will let's stop it to make sure we get the recording.